The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Welcome into my State of Mind. I am Dan Yorke. The pressure is on right now for a self-imposed deadline by Governor Raimondo to make a decision on whether to go into school. August 31st is the decision day. September 14th is the start day for kids. Teachers are expected to report by September 9th. Now, look, we already have a few cities, Providence, Central Falls, and Pawtucket, that don't necessarily qualify based on the pre-described metrics to start in-school learning. It really is kind of a hodgepodge. And right now, in lieu of the August 31st date, there is a lot of scrambling going on between superintendents, school committees, unions, and the like. Tonight, we'll revisit the conversation with the president of the NEA, the National Education Association, the largest teacher union here in the state, Bob Walsh. First, though, let's listen to Ted Nesi's report on the preliminary press conference regarding this that happened on Monday.
More than a month into phase 3 of Rhode Island's reopening plan, coronavirus trends appear to have stabilized.
Relative to a lot of other states, I think we're holding our own.
Rhode Island's positivity rate, the share of all tests coming back positive, has remained below 5% for nearly 3 months. That has the governor increasingly optimistic about sending students back into their classrooms on September 14th.
But I'm going to stick to what we said from the beginning. Operational readiness, testing, contact tracing, data, case prevalence. And Sunday, we're going to see if we check all those boxes, which I think we will based on where we are today.
As part of that effort, today the governor launched a new Education Operations Center supported by the National Guard. It's supposed to provide 24/7 assistance to local school districts on everything from contact tracing to transportation.
This Education Operations Center is going to operate very much like the EOC that we stand up during a hurricane or a blizzard or some other kind of natural disaster.
You have not heard that in any other education system.
Still, the education commissioner acknowledged some parents aren't convinced.
Are you seeing some districts where a high percentage of parents are already opting through pods or whatnot, versus other places where a lot of them are ready to go back in person?
We have some districts where it's almost 50-50, and other places where it's a small number of parents that want to do distance learning and they want their kids in.
So what does all this mean for private and parochial schools? The governor says they will be allowed to open before the September 14th public school start date, but they can't reopen their doors until she makes an overall reopening decision next Monday. Ted Nesi, Eyewitness News.
And so you see that news story by Ted Nesi really kind of putting a dun-dun-dun-dun date on, Monday, August 31st, which is, of course, next Monday. And, we've seen enough dun-dun-dun-duns to know that they don't all come out as dun-dun-dun-duns. Bob Walsh is of course, the executive director of the National Education Association, the largest teacher union here in Rhode Island. Bob, welcome back. I know you were only here a couple of weeks ago, but I thought just that the full court press that the governor and the commissioner are putting on right now warranted your reaction, especially with Monday's pretty lengthy press conference and a promise for next week for an announcement and then vignette press conferences. It feels like the governor's loading up. Welcome to the show. Do you feel the same way?
Yes, thank you for having me back so quickly. The circumstances certainly warranted, and I think that we are now at an accelerated pace for announcements regarding what's going to happen to the schools in the fall.
Are you getting any wink, nod type of where we're going type of thing, or do you think the governor is still trying to balance this?
Well, I think I know, and I think anyone who watches even from a distance knows that the governor really, really, really wants to open the schools. We had two meetings with her last week. My counterpart, Larry Pertle, our state president, and our counterparts from the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers, Frank Flynn and Colleen Callahan, met with the governor in her office for about an hour and a half, and then the governor followed up with a subset of our local leaders on a Zoom meeting a few days later. So goal number one for us was accomplished. We are back in dialogue. There is real dialogue going back and forth, and I think goal number two was accomplished in the governor's announcement yesterday that the actual physical structure of the schools, the health and safety components of, what's going on in schools is going to be identified. The state law already says the Department of Health is supposed to sign off on all school buildings before they open. Whether or not that's happened in the past, I can truthfully say I do not know. But they're going to do it this year, and I think they're going to be in for some rude awakenings, in all honesty. I think that you can say that a fan in the window will work until you're in a classroom without windows or with a window that opens 3 inches. You can say we have to comply with fire codes and health and safety codes and realize that in a pandemic, those might be mutually exclusive. Fire doors closed to stop smoke and fire being transmitted. Fire doors open to allow a fresh flow of air. Classroom doors closed for safety in case there's an intruder. Classroom doors open for transmission of air. So you got a lot of things going on.
Yeah, I get that. And this this fresh air thing, this small little matter of fresh virus-free air, one of the 8 tenets that you put into a letter along with the American Federation of Teachers for your compliance and cooperation and coming back. And we'll talk about some of the other matters, but this air thing is really interesting, and this surprise thing is also intriguing to me. I agree with you. I think if it's predominantly Department of Health personnel or the equivalent employees, the likes of which is a task force that the Department of Business Regulation is using to check in on bars, right? We're not talking about construction engineers going into these schools. So one of 2 things is going to happen when they do this check that they promise they're going to do of every building. It's going to be a total sham, meaning it'll be just a wink and a nod or I don't know, or it will be an honest effort that will look at the buildings and say, holy cow. And of course, holy cow should not be the response either, because we have had the need for capital improvements in this state for school buildings for 30 years. So what is your projection on what that process of making sure every building is compatible with a fresh airflow? I just feel like that's like this stop. It'll stop right there.
I think it's going to significantly narrow the number of available classrooms, even assuming all the other 7 criteria are met. And I think that's an honest assessment of what's going on. If you've got a brand new state-of-the-art building with the right level of air exchange coming through a modern ventilation system, then the windows don't matter. When the governor is talking about creative solutions and box fans and windows, those are workaround solutions. And if they work and they pass muster, then that's fine for the short term. Eventually winter is upon us, and having wide open windows with fans in them, if the windows indeed open, become problematic. So the governor said she wants creative solutions to this element. I think one of the things we identified when we talked to her is because she speaks with incredible authority, and she was talking about our value and community transmission, she was giving people the impression that was the only criteria. And we said, no, you got 5 criteria, we have 8 criteria, but they overlap, and no one's saying we're wrong. We dispute, the area that we're in dispute about is if we believe if the limit in the public is 15 gathered together, that should be the limit for students, because students are people too. But all the other things are part of the structure. It's just that she was focused so much on one that the public, rightly or wrongly, thought that was the only one. And when it was compounded by saying, well, this community can open and this community can't, just based on the R value, people thought everything else was thrown humorously out the window. But that's not, that's indeed not the case. I think it's going to be a surprise. I think there's going to be full buildings and parts of buildings that will be unusable. But that in a gradual reopening scenario, and we are still calling for distance learning to start because we think there are myriad problems that won't be addressed by September 14th. But in a gradual reopening scenario, then at least you know what your structure is and what rooms are available. And if you eventually, assuming those other 7 criteria are met, want to get your students, your special needs students and your early elementary students and subsets of students in first. And we say with teachers who volunteer to do it. sadly, because a subset of teachers are eventually going to have caught and survived COVID and will be available, and others because they feel that the precautions in a limited environment might be sufficient, then we'll know what rooms are available. So that's just another part of the equation. But that's the focus of the week, because now we're talking about buildings, so we're talking about buildings. Everything else is still important too.
Yeah, I get that. When we come back, we'll talk about I am concerned about this notion of acceptance of the infection in the schools. The governor has been talking about that. You just kind of hinted at it. And when we return, we'll talk about that with Bob Walsh, who is the executive director of the state's largest teacher union, the NEA. Right back on My State of Mind. Welcome back to My State of Mind. Bob Walsh, the NEA executive director, is with us. We left off with kind of an inference to teachers who might catch COVID and not, and blah blah blah. Look, I think there's a double-edged sword to the pragmatism here. It is ridiculous to think that no one's going to carry the virus in the schools. At the same time, it might be ridiculous to acknowledge that we're going to allow the virus in the schools. And I'm not sure where even I am on that. What I do wonder about, though, and what we haven't heard, is how much virus is going to shut down a school. And if a school is shut down, what happens then? That's a concern. I mean, we know the governor's talking about from this operations center, now the DOH, kind of a Ghostbusters team will show up when an infection is found. And do you have any inkling as to what happens? Give me a couple of short answers on this.
It's a good combined issue, because it's absolutely the same issue that's affecting our higher ed institutions at exactly the same time. Once you accept the premise that the governor has articulated that you can have different rules for Providence and Pawtucket and Central Falls versus the other 36 communities, those are the three she referenced, how can you not also accept the inference that individual schools could be shut, if they are open, could be shut down based on a very micro level transmission level, and the same at the colleges. When do you make the call to go to full distance learning in a college environment? You can get data right down to the small population level of how many cases. So if you've got 400 kids in a school and you've got 5 cases, is it time to shut down? Is it 10? Is it 0? Is it 1? First you're quarantining, and then you're going back to full distance learning. And they have not articulated that, but they've articulated other things that make you think, well, they have to have a plan on that, and they have to tell people what the plan is. Or you're going to have folks asking exactly that question, Dan, be 3 or 4 days back if they volunteer to go back and say, wait a second, how do I know when to not be here? And teachers and support professionals are asking the same question the parents are about their own students. They're also going to find out when they get there that the experience is not last year's school experience. I saw a classroom in another state where they had all the desks surrounded 3-sided with plexiglass, and the teachers were terrific. They decorated them like they were little Jeeps, with the fake tires and everything. And when they brought the kids in, they gave them the keys so that they say, and you have to stay in your car for the whole class. And I thought, what a terrific, creative thing to do, until the first kid says, are we there yet? Because it's a great creative thing, and it's just not going to be sustainable once that kid realizes, when that student realizes, they are locked into that position for a 6 or 7 hour school day.
Oh, we had an interesting call on Tuesday, on Monday on the radio show from a teacher who suggested that this anxiety that students are dealing with, which is profound, the depression and anxiety cases, no one denies that. And by the way, all of these, wonder out louds about going back are not, believe me, I am not part of the let's go back to school crowd. I don't think that, but the teachers aren't either. They love what they do. I mean, it's not like there's a job action here. There's a virus, and I think there's a big difference there. But the anxiety issue and the argument is, look, the risk, we had the safety conversation last week, but it's really a risk reward type of calculation. The kids are so unhealthy mentally at home that we got to get them into school. Got that. But some of the younger kids might be very well traumatized by the look of the school that they expect to with these plexiglass, with the walls stripped, with everybody in a mask, with the restrictions, not being able to go to the bathroom by raising your hand because someone's got a, I think the pressure of this has not necessarily been
right. I don't think that walk through. I don't think parents fully understand what the experience in this environment is going to be like for their children. And I think once they realize what it's like, you're going to have more folks opting for distance learning, because in Rhode Island, we're allowing all parents to choose distance learning for their students. We already have some districts where over 50% of the students will be out. We saw that Warwick voted. I hear, and I don't know, I know the governor would very much prefer school committees not to make this decision, but I hear that other school committees will be considering opting to start with distance learning out of an abundance of caution. Certainly, if you're a border community to Providence, Pawtucket, and Central Falls, and you've got a subset of your faculty and staff living in those communities, you got to think twice about whether it's logical for you to open when they are doing full distance learning. And to be fair, I've got teachers who absolutely think we should go back right away, kind of damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. This is an acceptable level of risk. It's a no-win situation for me. We opted holding everything in the balance based on what we know, what we've studied, what we've learned from other states to make the recommendation. And I don't think anyone disagrees with the recommendation. Here are our 8 standards of health and safety that must be met first. And since we don't think they can all be properly vetted by the 14th, to start with distance learning. That's our recommendation. If there are districts who feel they've met those 8 criteria, and the union and management and the parents and the students all agree that a subset should come back in, we're not going to say don't do that, but we give our advice, and we're a democracy, and people can take it or not take it.
Okay, when we come back, we'll talk about what your preparation is for next week, because it feels like a done-and-a-done moment, as I said. I'm not sure if that's actually going to happen, but if it does, what is the union's response? We'll be right back with Bob Walsh of the NEA on My State of Mind. Stay tuned. Segment with Bob Walsh of the teacher union known as the National Education Association. Look, you've played hardball in the past, and when you do, I don't always like it. I'm not sure I'd like it this time either, but as I've said, I'm going to reiterate, both the NEA and the AFT, I think, have brought a sense of cooperation and diplomacy to this difficult place. But you also have no grass growing under your feet, and you've been very, very supportive of the governor through this process. Meaning, you've given her all the respect in the world, rightly so. But I also know that the wheels are turning, and if we have some kind of August 31st announcement that says, guess what? Predominantly, our districts are going back to school, like it or lump it, because she's going to have that tone. If she's going to force the issue, she's going to have to force the issue. What do you project that your response will be?
Well, Dan, I'm sure that if they prove they've actually looked at 8,000 to 10,000 classrooms in over 450 buildings throughout the state of Rhode Island between yesterday and next Monday, and have proven that every one of them is available, and they've met the other 7 criteria, my tone will be, well, I guess it's time to try. But in the off chance that they have not inspected every building, that the Department of Health has not signed off on every plan, that the R value is still questionable, that we haven't figured out the transportation issues, that other school committees have signed on to not start, and we're going to further the inequities of the system, we might take a different tone and say maybe we should start with distance learning, which is what we've been saying anyway. Well, now, everyone wants me to say statewide strike, but there are many, many steps before you get to that, including the courts.
Sure. I understand that part. And by the way, folks, if by some chance you hear the lawnmower, and you may hear the lawnmower, welcome to Zoom television. There's nothing I can do about it, and there's nothing Bob can do about it. Okay, so I mean, look, I'm not trying to bait you or break a story. What I'm trying to figure out is whether or not the order. By the way, your wit and sarcasm are a combo there, well detected and well learned. There's no way all those inspections will be done by Monday. What's going to happen here?
You started a lot earlier than Dan, huh?
Yeah, hello, and she's going to say we're going. But she's also going to give herself caveats that each individual building could disqualify itself, which will also create the kind of inconsistent mess that we don't want here. I just, you mentioned the word strike. I'm asking about litigation. At some point, that might be a reality. And I hate to say this, and we only have a couple minutes, but at the end of the day, the teachers hold all the cards, because if they don't show up, the learning doesn't get done. Now, I know that it's not that simple, but in some ways it feels, in this condition, it feels that simple. So wrap that up for me.
Well, I think the parents of the students also hold as many cards as we do, and the school committees, which local control is still the rule in Rhode Island, hold the cards. So a lot of people hold the cards. And by the way, the superintendents hold the cards too, because I think it could snow on September 14th and the 15th and the 16th. And since there are no more snow days and we go right to distance learning, they can always call a snow day if they need to, if they're not ready to open. My goal, in other words, there are a lot of ways that we can get to distance learning if we need to. My goal is the same as I said at the very beginning. We want to stand with the governor and say, we'd love to be back. We're just not ready to be back. And we're going to start with distance learning, and we will phase in as quickly but as safely as possible based on all the criteria that we keep reiterating, getting the students who need to be back the most back first, and then everyone else as soon as that is practical. And that might be post-vaccine. I don't know. I guess so. And we're going to be informed by a lot of other things going on, including what's going on with the college, the returning college students, what happens on Labor Day weekend and Election Day. I think we're going to see another spike. I just think we're going to see another spike. And the R value, which the governor focused on a lot of the summer, is going to be the thing that gave us hope and then gives us the pause that we're going to need.
All right.
And we'll be back to talk about it.
And we'll check back with you next week after the governor's big day. Bob, appreciate your time.
As always, pleasure to be here, Dan. Thank you.
And we'll be right back on My State of Mind for a final word. Stay with us. Despite the good efforts by the governor and the education and health directors, I will tell you, it seems like this hill is going to be a little bit high to climb, with a lot of districts sending messages now that they just don't think they're ready. We'll wait for Monday, August 31st, and talk more about it, of course, next week and each day on the radio, weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRO. Stay with us. Stay safe. Make sure you wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Remember all that stuff? Good night.